Welcome to online worship with Minnehaha United Methodist Church. I am Becky Sechrist, the pastor, and I am delighted that you are joining us for this service. Just a note about the service, and that is that all of the music has been created remotely. So many thanks to all of the voices who recorded in their own homes and then sent the music in, and to Tim and to Anders who put all of that together, as well as all of the instrumentalists who do the same thing. So thanks to all of you for doing that. And at any point in the service, you are welcome to sing along. And if you feel like that's sort of like singing in the shower by yourself or singing alone in your car, just know that that's how all of the musicians did it as well. So you are welcome to join in at any of that. And so now, as we prepare ourselves for our time of worship, Indy Gerster is going to light a candle for us, and if you have a candle at your house that you would like to light, we invite you to also do that at this time as we prepare ourselves for worship. I invite us now into our intentional time of community prayer together. And for a list of all of those that we are holding in our prayers, I invite you to turn to the bulletin, which you can find on the website, and you'll see all of the people that are listed there. Particularly on this 4th of July weekend, we hold in our prayers our country and all of the things that we do together as a country, all of the things that we stand for as a country. And particularly on this 4th of July weekend, we also hold in our prayers the people of Hong Kong who are working to create a country that they want, and the opposition that is running into with the Chinese government and the protests and the changes in rules. And so we hold in our prayers the people of Hong Kong in the midst of all of this. We also, in the midst of our own celebrations about independence and being a great country, we hold in prayer all of the conversations we are having around what it means to be this kind of country. Conversations around systemic racism, conversations around defunding or reforming the police, conversations about the Confederate flag and its use and its history. So we hold all of that in prayer. We also hold in prayer the Haugen family. Jan Haugen's brother-in-law, Dave Haugen's uncle, Chug Wilson, died this last week in Iowa City. And so prayers for all of them in the midst of their grief. And of course, we hold in our prayers all of those who are affected by the rising infection rate of COVID-19, whether that is people in the hospital, people working in the hospitals, people worried about getting infected, all that entails with a rising infection rate. So prayers for all of that. And so holding these and many other things in our hearts, I invite us to join our voices together in our morning prayer. Freeing God, it is you who calls us to freedom. It is you who sets us free. But this is not the freedom to judge others. This is not the freedom to spoil our lives. This is not the freedom to imprison others or to create rules that are unjust. Your truth, O God, will set us free. We live the freedom of the way of Christ. We live out the freedom of bringing about your realm on earth. Free us, O God, from our ways that hold us captive and bring us all into your freedom. Amen. And now let us be in a time of silent prayer. And now let us join our voices together in the prayer that Jesus taught us. Our Creator, God in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen.
Hello, it's good to be with you again here today. And for today's children's lesson, I wanted to talk about something that scares me. And that something is new situations. Now, I really don't like new situations. I like to know exactly what to expect with things. I like to know what's going on. I don't want to do anything wrong. And so new situations make me feel worried about that happening. So before I go someplace new, like to a new store or restaurant or coffee shop, I like to talk to people who've been there before. And I sometimes go online and I look at pictures and I do all that I can to make sure that when I go into the situation for the first time, I know a little bit about what's going on, and I hope that I can convince that everybody there that I know exactly what I'm doing. Because not only do new situations scare me, I also really don't want anybody to know that I don't know what's going on. And I want to make sure that people think I've got it all together. I don't want to stand on a street corner looking at a map, wondering what direction I should go. I don't want to ask anybody for directions. Sometimes it feels less scary for me to actually be lost and stay lost, but still look like I know where I'm going, than it is to just stop and ask somebody for help, or to look at signs and maps and to take time to figure out the right way to go so I'm not lost anymore. And friends, this is a very silly way for me to approach life, because every day is a new day with new situations. And I can't possibly research every single option before I take a step. And you know what I need to keep reminding myself? I need to keep reminding myself that it's okay to not know where I'm going. It's okay that people might know that I'm lost, or that people might know I'm scared or don't know everything. It's okay to stop, to look around, to look at maps, to look at signs, to ask for help. Because these places and these situations that are new to me, they might be other people's homes, and these other people can help me. And these situations that are new to me, other people might be able to help me get through them. And if I'm heading the wrong direction, if I really have no idea where I'm going, it is probably better that I stop, that I take time to take a breath, to look at the signs around me, to read a map, to ask for help, to get going on the right direction. This is how I can learn, and this is how I can grow. This is how I can make new friends, and this is how I discover new places. This is how I discover where God is leading me. And the great thing about being a part of a community like Minnehaha is we can help one another be brave when we are scared. And we can help one another to read maps and to read signs and to look for the right direction. We can help one another find our way through each new day. Amen.
I invite you now to pass the peace of Christ to one another. And so if you have others in your household that you can pass the peace to, I invite you to do that. And if you are alone in your home, I invite you to send a text or an email, make a phone call, or simply pass the peace in your heart, knowing that you will pass it along as the day progresses.
Rejoicing, sing your name.
And so as we take our morning offering, you're noticing that there are no ushers walking through your living room with an offering plate. And so we invite you to be a self-starter on that. And you can give to the church by sending in a check to the address, and we're receiving those in the office. You can also give through the Give Plus app that you can find on our website or download onto your phone. And you can also make arrangements to set up an electronic funds transfer regularly from your checking or savings account. And if you would like to do that, please indeed contact the office and we'll help you make those arrangements. And a thanks again to those of you who have been generous and have been sending in your stimulus checks. We really do appreciate that. And just an encouragement to all of us to be generous with the entirety of our lives and to know that God blesses all of it.
When I woke this morning, something inside of me told me this would be my day. I heard the morning train, I felt the wind change too many times on my way. Then I saw the sunrise above a cotton sky, like a candy cane delight. I saw a milkman, I saw a businessman, I saw the only road in sight. Come on, sunshine, what can you show me? Where can you take me to make me understand? The wind can shake me, others forsake me. The rain can touch me, but can I touch the rain? Then I got to thinking, what makes you want to go? To know the wherefore and the why. Too many times now, oh Lord, I can't remember if it's September or July. Then all at once it came to me, I saw the wherefore, and you can see it if you try. It's in the sun above, it's in the ones you love. You'll never know the reason why. Come on, sunshine, what can you show me? Where can you take me to make me understand? The wind can shake me, others forsake me. The rain can touch me, can I touch the rain? So much to lose, so much to gain.
Today's scripture lesson comes from the 24th chapter of Genesis. So he said, I am Abraham's servant. The Lord has greatly blessed my master, and he has become wealthy. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, and male and female slaves, camels and camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when she was old. And he has given him all that he has. My master made me swear, saying, You shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of Canaanite, in whose land I live, but you shall go to my father's house, to my kindred, and get a wife for my son. I came today to the spring and said, O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, if now you will only make successful the way I am going. I'm standing here by the spring of water. Let the young woman who comes out to draw, to whom I shall say, Please give me a little drink from your jar to drink. And who will say to me, Drink, and I will draw for your camels also. let her be the woman whom the Lord has appointed for my master's son. Before I finished speaking in my heart, there was Rebecca coming out with her water jar on her shoulders, and she went down to the spring and drew. I said to her, "Please let me drink." She quickly let down from her jar from her shoulders and said, "Drink. I will also water your camels." So I drank, and she also watered the camels. Then I asked her, "Whose daughter are you? Whose daughter are you?" She whom Milcah bore to him. So I put the ring on her nose and the bracelets on her arms. Then I bowed my head and worshipped the Lord and blessed the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who led me by the right way to obtain the daughter of my master's kinsman for his son. Now then, if you will deal loyally and truly with my master, tell me, and if not, tell me so that I may return either to the right hand or to the left. And they called Rebekah and said to her, "Will you go with this man?" She said, "I will." So they sent away their sister Rebekah and her nurse, along with Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said to her, May you, our sister, become thousands of myriads. May your offspring gain possession of the gates of your foes." Then Rebekah and her maids rose up, mounted the camels, and followed the man. Thus the servant took Rebekah and went his way. Now Isaac had come from Beer-lahai-roi and was settled in the Negev. Isaac went out in the evening to walk in the field, and looking up he saw camels coming. And Rebekah looked up, and when she saw Isaac, she slipped quickly from the camel and said to the servant, "Who is the man over there walking in the field to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." So she took her veil and covered herself. And the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent. He took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. So Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. May God add blessings and understand to this reading. Amen.
Thank you, Christopher, for reading that passage for us. When I was in college, I got involved with a campus group called InterVarsity Christian Fellowship. And at the end of my freshman year, InterVarsity really encouraged freshmen to think about committing in their sophomore year to taking a mission trip. I was really not all that adventurous, but the leaders of InterVarsity were very persuasive. And they also pointed out that I had already articulated that I thought I had a call to ministry. And they said, you don't know, maybe that call to ministry is to be a missionary. This would be a really great way to find that out. Plus, all my friends were doing it. So I did commit to going on a mission trip the summer between my sophomore and junior year in 1985. Now, to InterVarsity's credit, they did spend all of our sophomore year doing a variety of trainings for us, cross-cultural sensitivity, getting us used to being in a variety of environments so that we would be well prepared for our mission trips. And so in the summer of 1985, I spent 8 weeks in the country of Belize. For those of you who aren't familiar with Belize, it was then a newly independent country just south of Mexico and east of Guatemala on the Yucatan Peninsula. And so I went by myself to Belize, and I hated every minute of my 8 weeks of my mission trip. It was hot and humid there like it is right now, only it was like that all the time, day and night. It was like 85 degrees during the day and 70 degrees at night and 85% humidity all of the time, and nobody had any air conditioning. And so that's what it was like night and day for me. They had cockroaches in Belize the size of June bugs, and they flew. And there were mosquitoes everywhere and no screens on any of the houses. And of course you can't shut the windows because hot, humid. Anyway, so I was covered in mosquito bites and I was miserable. They had, InterVarsity had assured us and probably more importantly our parents that at the slightest sign of civil unrest, they would of course send us home immediately from our mission posts. And so I prayed every day for that poor, peaceful country of Belize to experience civil unrest so that I could go home. It did not happen. And I spent 8 weeks, my full 8 weeks in Belize. I was reflective enough and mature enough to know that someday I would be able to point to important lessons I learned during that time. And I even speculated at the time that maybe someday I would be able to look back upon that trip with some fondness. I don't know about the fondness part, but about 20 years after that trip, I was able to recall with gratefulness that I got to snorkel on the world's second largest barrier reef, which sits right off the coast of Belize. And I got to do that at a time when Belize was relatively unknown and that barrier reef was relatively untouched. And I got to go to Guatemala and see Mayan ruins. It was pretty, that part was pretty amazing. Not sure it was worth the whole trip, but it was amazing. The lessons though, the lessons from that trip, I learned right away. I learned that I was not called to be a missionary. There was absolutely no way that I was ever doing that again. That was not within my skill set or my gift set, nor did I think that's what God was asking me to do. The fall after I got back from Belize, I took a course in Central American politics. Having been in Central America for 8 weeks, I thought that would be interesting, and I was shocked, appalled, educated about the history of Central America. I also learned that that trip I took to Guatemala in 1985 was, I think it ranks up there as the most stupid thing I have done and the most dangerous thing that I have done in my entire life. Thankfully, I did not know that at the time. So I tell you this story because I think it maybe affects my perspective of the story of Rebecca, because I really admire her adventurous spirit. I admire how it is that she is willing to greet a man at the well, and when he says, "Hey, do you want to come back and marry my master's son?" she says, "Sure," and packs up all of her belongings and goes away not for 8 weeks, but for an entire life, to make her life new in some place she has never been, with people that she has never met. So maybe a little backstory on Rebecca is important. So you may remember from last week Isaac, who was not sacrificed by his father and was fairly young at that time, but now Isaac is all grown up. And in the meantime, his mother Sarah has died, and so it is up to Abraham to find a wife for Isaac. That is what one does as a parent. You arrange a marriage for your child. And Abraham looks around him and says, "I don't really want my son to marry these foreigners, and I want him to marry members of my own kin, like we've always done." And so he sends his own servant back to his own people and says, "I want you to go and find somebody who can marry Isaac from among my people." And so off goes Abraham's servant. Now, I don't know if Abraham's servant felt incredibly overwhelmed by this challenge or happy to have this challenge, but at any rate, the servant decides that he needs to ask God for a sign. And so the servant says, here's the sign, God. I'm going to go to a well, and as I'm at the well, when a woman comes to draw water, because women came to draw water at the well, I'm going to ask for a drink. And when she says yes, and offers me a drink, and then also offers to water my camel, that will be a sign that this is the right person for me to ask to marry my master's son. So this sign that the servant asks for, this is sort of like us asking for a sign from God about what hotel we should stay at for the night, and saying, All right, so here's what I want as a sign, God. When I go into the hotel, I want to be greeted politely, and when I ask for a room, they'll tell me there's a room, they'll give me a key, and they'll invite me to the complimentary breakfast in the breakfast lounge in the morning. That will be the sign that this is where I should stay for the night. So the bar was nice and low. Abraham's servant didn't set some sign way up here, just a basic hospitality. And so, of course, it is fulfilled by the first woman who comes to the well and offers him the basic hospitality of the culture, which is a drink for him and a drink for his camel. And so when he explains why he's asked for this sign, she then invites him back home. He tells the whole story again to her father and says, I think that then your daughter is the woman who should marry my master's son. And her father says, well, let's check and see what she thinks about that. Rebecca, do you want to go with this guy? And she says, already packed, ready to go. And off she goes to make her new life. Now, what we don't hear is Rebecca's side of the story. It's quite possible that Rebecca had been asking for a sign of her own. Maybe she had taken a look at the prospects around her, the people who she was likely to be arranged in marriage to by her father, and she did not like what she saw. And so she was quite happy at home, but she knew that there was a limited time on that she could only convince her father to let her stay at home for so long. And so maybe she was asking for a sign of her own. Maybe every day she was praying, oh God, when I go to the well today, let there be some stranger wandering through who can offer me something better than this. So maybe really the sign was hers that was being fulfilled, not Abraham's servant. And she probably prayed that much more emphatically than I did when I was in Bailey's praying for civil unrest, because I didn't really pray for civil unrest in Bailey's. I knew that was selfish, to ask for an entire country to go through upset just so I could go home. But I really wanted to go home. But Rebecca wanted to leave home, probably even more desperately than I wanted to go home. And so she asks for a sign, maybe, and she gets a sign. However that all works out, Rebecca goes home to a new home and meets her husband. And then the story continues. So what do we do with this story? I mean, the signs that are being asked for seem like low fruit, and yet are they? To ask for a sign for something that is simple, that is likely to happen anyway, doesn't that indicate that God is already there? That we already know that God is present among us? That God is in the midst of everything that we are doing? Even though I hated my 8 weeks in Bailey's, I knew that God was present with me. I knew that at the end of it, I would get to go home. I knew that God would make something out of this. And Rebecca knew the same thing. And so did Abraham. And so did Abraham's servant. And so did Isaac. And so do we. So we do experience God in everything, because God is always there, beckoning to us, offering us relationship. My experience of the coral reef in Bailey's makes me so much more aware of the impacts of climate change whenever we talk about the impact on coral reefs, because I know what they're supposed to look like. My knowledge of Central American politics after I had been in Central America affects now where I travel and how I travel and what bananas I'll eat. And if you want to know what that has to do with my trip, that's a longer conversation. Feel free to ask me about that. And even though this weather, I really dislike it, the heat and the humidity, I appreciate where I live. I appreciate that this is not always what it is like here, and I appreciate that I have air conditioning. And so the signs of God are actually all around us. They are here, just right within reach. We can see God at work in our lives, in our world. The story of Rebecca reminds us to be looking for those signs, to be watching for how God is acting in the world. And then when we see a sign, when we see God at work, we are then invited to join God in that action so that we can continue to live out lives of faith. Amen.
Some folks are made, born to wave the flag, ooh, the red, white, and blue. And when the band plays Hail to the Chief, ooh, they point the cannon at you. Oh, it ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no senator's son. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one, no. Some folks are born, silver spoon in hand. Lord, they don't help themselves, no. But when the tax man comes to the door, Lord, the house looking like a rummage sale. Oh, it ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no millionaire son, no. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one, no. Some folks inherit star-spangled eyes, and then they send you down the war, Lord. And when you ask them, how much should I give? Oh, the only answer is more, more, more. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no military son, no. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one, no. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate one, no. It ain't me, it ain't me. I ain't no fortunate son, no.
And so as that lovely music sends us out, I also want to send us back to our lives, knowing that God sends us forth from the gathered church, however we are gathered, to be ambassadors for Christ. We are to bring compassion, love, and justice for our neighbors and ourselves. So go, live in the world. Know that God's Spirit goes with you and that God's Spirit is already out there ahead of you. Amen.